Hi, everyone. Tom Salemi here. Welcome back to the Device Talks Weekly podcast. This is brought to you by Device Talks Boston. Please join us on May 27th and 28th at Device Talks Boston. Please also join us at Device Talks Minnesota on May 4th. Can't wait to see you at one or both locations. Would love to see you twice, but once is almost as nice. Get some great events, great agendas, great speakers coming your way. Go to boston.devicetalks.com for more information about that event, and minnesota.devicetalks.com for information about that event. In this episode today, we've got a really great conversation I had with Darrin Uecker. He's the Chief Technology Officer of Pulse Biosciences, which is a fascinating company that was formed basically to find a useful and, of course, productive application for its pulse technology, pulse field technology. And Darrin will get into that story a bit, but his story is quite compelling as well. He is got a great medtech background, starting at the very start with computer motion, which of course is now part of Intuitive's story. So I'll talk with Darrin about his path in medtech. He's been with many companies. Most, if not all, have gone on to be acquired. So he's had a successful run in this industry, and Pulse Biosciences looks like the next big win. Before that, you'll get to visit with Ralph Kern. He's the Chief Medical Officer at Cognito Therapeutics. We talked with him at Device Talks West. Cognito is just a fascinating neuro business, and I know you'll enjoy that conversation with Ralph. And, of course, we'll kick everything off with my conversation with Chris Newmarker. We'll hit the highlights of this week, and we'll, of course, talk a little bit of nonsense, but that's to be expected. And I hope you enjoy it just a little bit. All right, folks. Once again, I hope you join us at Device Talks Minnesota and Device Talks Boston. Now, let's get this podcast started. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
Chris Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Doing well, Tom. Doing well. So, looks like weather's warming up here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
Looks like we're gonna get rid of our ice in more ways than one. So,
no, I've been reading those headlines and hopeful that there's truth behind that for sure.
I will believe it when I see it. But yes, hopefully, it's been a tough time, and but yeah, I'm proud of these cities. Proud of what we've done.
Yeah, you very much should be. As I wrote in MDO this week, trying to pinpoint MedTech's hometown. If home is where the heart is, and that place is Minnesota. Everyone's been very courageous there and very impressive. And I know we have our little fun Boston, Minnesota rivalry banter, but hats off to you folks. So, but no, hopefully you'll see some calming down of what's gone on over there.
Exactly.
So great news for Minnesota, and
Yeah,
we're all rooting for you.
Thanks. Yeah. All getting better. So, well, here we are, and there's actually like some more like really medtech industry just keeps on buzzing. So much going on.
Absolutely. No, interesting. You've got an interesting set of newsmakers this week, and of course, we'll be in Minnesota on May 4th at
May
Device
4th.
Talks Minnesknow. So
It's
the
gonna be
Star Wars
awesome.
Day, as folks have pointed out. May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you,
Yeah.
Tom.
So I don't know if you've ever seen Star Wars, Chris, but it's pretty good.
I've heard it's good. I should check that out sometime.
All right, let us roll into the Newmarkers newsmakers. Chris, what is number 5?
Hey, number 5 on the list, we've got Karl Storz and Smith+Nephew announcing a partnership around surgical visualization. And just as a fun aside, Karl Storz is also the owner of Ascensus Surgical, which has done a lot of pioneering with surgical robotics and innovating. So, but yeah, this is like this SNN and Karl Storz partnerships about supporting ORs and ambulatory surgery centers. So yeah, visualization. I mean, this kind of digitization of surgery we've seen over the past decade or two. Yeah, just sounds like a cool partnership.
Absolutely. No, and it definitely is, again, another indication of Smith+Nephew's focus on the ASC. I think they started their own surgical network last year, right?
Yeah.
They started an ambulatory surgical network last year. So the orthopedic industry is getting higher and higher tech, as Yvonne Torno said at Device Talks Boston. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so great news.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was yeah, and you're right, like Smith+Nephew, actually they've been working on streamlining their inventory and whatnot for years. So that's also very cool. But yeah, I mean, this isn't your old like, oh, here's a knee replacement, here's a hip replacement, I mean, this things are getting like really high tech. You're seeing a lot of sensors, a lot of digitization, a lot of really neat planning tools around operations to hopefully, I mean, they seem to like be doing a really good job like reducing like errors and giving people better results. So I mean, yeah, it's exciting as someone like you who's getting older, and the joints are getting a little more creaky. It's nice to know that
Someone
jump
like
up and down,
me.
that there might be a little bit of a ache in one of those knees there. It's like, well, I'm glad they're getting better at how they're doing all that stuff.
Someone's got a milestone birthday this year, don't they, Chris
Oh
Newmarker?
yeah, yeah.
You're not that far behind in this race to the bottom. So, all right, Chris Newmarker, what is
All
number
right.
4?
All right, number 4 on the list, we've got NextSense debuting brain activity sensing headphones that can improve sleep. These things are called the Smart Buds. By the way, the previous article was by senior editor Sean Hooley. This one is by associate editor Skylar Rivera. Um, I mean, this is just like really interesting tech. I mean, uses 6 EEG sensors to measure electrical activity and detect when users are in light sleep, deep sleep, or drifting away. As the
Interesting.
user as the user falls deeper into sleep, yeah, this is just so basically they're delivering precisely timed sound frequencies called soft pink noise that nudge the brain's waves into a restorative rhythm, strengthening deep sleep. So
Hmm.
so wow, so these are smart buds that help you sleep better.
I'm
This
a I'm
is
a gray noise guy. Are you a noise person? Do you have white noise machines or anything going on while you're sleeping?
I might play something a little mellow, Celtic, new agey, whatever, like lightly for a bit while I'm drifting off.
No, while you're sleeping, you don't have that stuff going on all night? You must have
No.
nightmares. Good God.
No, no, yeah. I would
Well,
like
my
kicked in
wife
and
has
warded
the
the
has the fan going on her nightstand, but I've got the iPad with some noise, and this is interesting because one of my kids sleeps with his earbuds in because I think he uses white noise. So this is definitely a way to go about it. It's fascinating that it kind of measures whether or not the quality of your sleep and whether you need the noise or not. Um,
That's
kind of
interesting, yeah. Like,
kind
is the noise helping or not helping or
I mean, it definitely when I so I, if I'm in a hotel, like if I'm traveling, I bring my iPad, I blare the gray noise, and it just kind of level sets
gets
me
you
and
going?
just gets me to sleep and keeps you asleep too, which is always the trouble with the hotel. Like you wake up like at 12:30 in the morning, and you're like, oh, it must be time to get up, and then you look at the clock, you're like, oh God, like I've got another 5 hours of this. So the gray noise really helps me, but this is interesting having earbuds in, which I don't usually do, and I'm not sure how I feel about sleeping with those in,
Yeah,
but,
that would be a little interesting, yeah.
yeah. But the fact that it kinda comes and goes as you need it, that's a really, really, interesting approach, and I'm not sure if that's they must have some data suggesting that helps because I would think just a steady level of noise would be more steadying and smoothing, but perhaps this counterbalance
I think it's
by
wild that it
the noise.
uses EEG sensors to sense how you're sleeping instead
Right,
of
exactly, yeah.
tailoring it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very sophisticated. And by the way, this company is based in Mountain View, California, so like right in the heart of Silicon Valley. But
Alright.
yeah, it's exciting tech.
Well, sleep, I have a feeling over the next decade or so, sleep's already seen as important, but I think
Mhm.
someday we're gonna look back and realize we've undervalued the importance of sleep, like,
Oh,
to
absolutely.
health, to cognitive health to dementia and things like that, and they're already pointing to sleep as sort of a pre-indicator of Alzheimer's or lack of sleep. So I think this is actually, I mean, we can say it's a lifestyle product, but I believe it someday these are going to be healthcare
Health
products.
product.
Yeah.
For
sure.
I mean, my day is so much better when I get a good night's sleep. I mean, it's just like kicks it up a notch. So
I did not get a good night's sleep last night, but that's on me. I was playing Civilization 6, and I just didn't want to go to bed. I was a bad boy, Chris Newmarker. If I were my own dad, I would have yelled at myself a couple hours before I actually went to bed. So, but that's on me. But part of it is also this stupid cough, like that just won't go away. It's making me very grumbly. So anyway, it's nice to have an escape like Civ 6, and it's nice to have these noise machines. So let's see where this goes.
we just have little kids over here, so we're still dealing with the little kids crawling into the bed sometime. That's just like nothing like waking up and having a kid's foot in your face or something. Yeah, but oh well. It'll get better. Everything gets better.
That goes away.
Yes, exactly.
You hope anyway. All right.
It better go away. I mean, right?
What's number 3, Chris Newmarker?
Oh my gosh, number 3 on the list. This is from yours truly. I noticed a note from Mike Matson and his colleagues over at Needham Company that they were upgrading Medtronic shares to buy. Which I mean, I that got my attention. I mean, because Matson was just talking about all the products that Medtronic has in its pipeline that could give it a boost.
Well, that's great news for Medtronic for sure. I mean, when I saw the headline and I started listing in my head what's going on, I thought about Hugo, but they're right. I mean, there's a lot of other the Simplicity news with Medicare, Affairs, great news. So Medtronic's been on a bit of a roll. So
this Alta Viva device, I mean, there's a lot of potential in that. I mean, especially because stuff that's been out there before has been more like pacemaker-like devices, and this is like some tiny thing you put under the skin, near the ankle, like to provide tibial nerve stimulation, and it treats urge urinary incontinence. So I mean, if someday I unfortunately had something like that, I mean, like something like that they just implant near my ankle sounds pretty great.
Great. All right, Chris Newmarker, let's move on to number 2.
Yeah, number 2 on the list. This is from Sean, and it's Johnson & Johnson reporting some encouraging results around their investigational Omnypulse platform for AFib, and they also had some more data to back their the Varipulse system. So just some more. I mean, gosh, this pulse field ablation space is just so dynamic right now. So just so exciting and offering so much potential. And so it's neat to see J&J moving forward with some more positive data on this investigational system.
Absolutely. Our keynote guest on the podcast today will be Darrin Uecker, who's the Chief Technology Officer at Pulse Biosciences, and they had some great news last week at the AF Symposium here in Boston. There's a smaller trial. I think it was like 150 people, but their success rate for treatment was like 96% after 3 months, and then I think it was still close to 90 after a longer period of time. And Darrin will share it in the interview. But we talked a bit about how this field could shape up, and basically how all these different programs can find a successful path. So it's great to have all these options for interventionalists and, of course, for patients.
Yeah, and I love competition. I think the more competition you have, the more innovation that you're going to see. So
yeah, we actually had a great conversation. He was with Computer Motion at the start. He was Chief Technology Officer there, and he talked about how they came to be acquired by Intuitive.
Wow.
And it was basically a realization that, to your point, competition is great, but they were also like, look, we can keep beating each other up, or we can join forces and try to really make an effective change for healthcare. So that's the path. That's the path they went. All right, what's the big number 1, Chris Newmarker?
And number 1 on the list. This is also from Sean, and this is news from Stryker announcing through an SEC filing that all these probes that they have for potential anti-bribery law violations have now been dropped. So I mean, a lot of medtech companies do a lot of business overseas, and they were facing some kind of investigation of some kind of like some kind of investigation whether potentially some kind of Foreign Corrupt Practices Act violations occurred. But yeah, they're through it. They no charges. Things have been dropped. So that's investigate. So those those government bodies have ended their investigations. It was the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission. So good news
All
for
right.
Stryker.
Yeah, good news for Stryker. Good news for the industry. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great top five, Chris Newmarker. Where can folks get the top five newsmakers every single day? How can they do that?
Oh my gosh, you can get the top five newsmakers by just following our daily +5 e-newsletter over at Mass Device. Super easy just to go to the site, and right there at the top we got a box to get subscribed for the newsletter. So go over to massdevice.com and you can get that daily dose of newsmakers. But of course, always stop by here and listen to me and Tom chat about the news.
It's a great newsletter, but it's not as entertaining as you and I are. I mean, we are
It's not.
just charming as all heck, aren't we?
Totally. Yeah, just the charisma. I mean, I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry I have to deal with all this charisma. You listen to this.
Just too much charisma. Just too much.
Exactly, all right. Yeah.
Chris Newmarker, thanks so much
Makes
for the great
JFK look like a boring person. I mean,
All right, thank you, Chris Newmarker. Now it's time for our Future of MedTech Opportunities interview, our FOMO interview. This one is led by Jim Hammerand. He's the managing editor of Medical Design and Outsourcing, and he spoke with Ralph Kern, Chief Medical Officer at Cognito Therapeutics. They connected at DeviceTalks West. Let's listen.
Hi, I'm Jim Hammerand, Managing Editor of Medical Design Outsourcing, and we are here live at the DeviceTalks West doing some FOMO interviews for the podcast. I'm here today with Cognito Therapeutics Chief Medical and Scientific Officer, Dr. Ralph Kern. Ralph, thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So first of all, let's talk about what drew you into neurotech and neuromod specifically.
Yeah, my background's in neurology and neuroscience, and electricity is the language of the brain. And I spent first part of my career being very much involved in measuring and stimulating nerves. And it occurred to me that this was a portal that could afford a treatment modality. And Cognito is really at that intersection of using the language of the brain to bring a treatment to people that are in desperate need of a healthcare solution. And that was really the crux of it for me.
And how exactly does this technology work?
Our brain uses electricity to maintain its resilience. And the resilience is driven by well-known biology. So we're harnessing the brain's own ability to heal itself and maintain a resilient state. We do that by delivering synchronized light and sound that produce a synchronized electrical activity to drive that same biology. And that's essentially, in simple terms, what we do. So basically, the technology is simple but incredibly impactful because of the native biology that it's able to drive.
What, from your perspective, are the biggest or the principal challenges right now facing the neurotech and neuromod market?
Yeah, I think increasing awareness of the capability of neurotechnology. I think understanding, particularly for brain disease, that the blood-brain barrier is there to keep most things out. We have privileged access to the brain by using the sensory on-ramps. So the synchronized light and sound activates the brain directly without impediment to drive the electrical activity that's important for this biological expression. So we're not limited by the constraints of drugs. So I think that that awareness is becoming greater and greater, particularly with the brain-computer interface, transcutaneous magnetic stimulation, various forms of electrical stimulation, and also the idea that you can activate the brain and change the way the brain functions. So I think that I think some of the wins are paving the way for us, but I think there's much more work to be done to make people aware that neurotechnology can achieve some outcomes that are not possible with drugs, and they really are complementary. But there's unique attributes of neurotechnology that create huge opportunities to solve difficult problems.
What about some of the remaining work to be done on the clinical side and the technical side? What are the big challenges?
Yeah, I think the big challenge for neurotechnology, and we're trying to be on the leading edge of that, is that the evidentiary requirements for regulatory approval and payer access can be very different. We are developing our technology with a very robust clinical program, which is very data rich, that will try to bridge that gap so that we have a very high level of robust data for regulatory support, but at the same time will translate to payers who want to see very meaningful outcomes. And I think that's the approach we've taken. We're in our 5th clinical trial right now. We have a fully enrolled pivotal trial in mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease in the U.S. at 60 sites. And we're taking a very rigorous approach. That study will read out later next summer. And at that point, we'll be moving very quickly to a regulatory submission and try to get this into the hands of people who need it as quickly as possible.
What are some of the big changes happening right now in the neuromod market, even beyond your company?
Yeah, I think neurologists, neurosurgeons, and those who are trying to find solutions for brain disease are increasingly interested in neurotechnology options. I think some of the initial wins with deep brain stimulation have fostered that interest, really remarkable outcomes. I think we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. We hope to continue that with our technology, and we look to other technologies as brothers in arms to help us move the field forward. I think one of the big challenges, of course, will be access and coverage. And I think health systems will have to play a big part in bringing these solutions to patients. The way we look at it is that we want to be patient-friendly, we want to be provider-friendly, we want to be health system-friendly, and we want to be payer-friendly. So we want to provide a solution that really is a win-win across the spectrum, so there isn't this divide between medical practice and health systems. We want to bring those two together.
And with regards to your particular market, neurotech and neuromod more broadly, paint us a picture of the future. What does this market look like 5-10 years into the future?
Yeah, I think it's going to move from treating very difficult diseases to looking at recovery from injury, and then looking at human performance. I think that is the spectrum that we're looking at. Obviously, starting with a diseased approach, we're looking at slowing the rate of progression of diseases, or hopefully in some cases stabilizing or improving function. I think the second phase will be looking at things like stroke and traumatic brain injury to look at speeding up and extending the degree of recovery in those individuals. But there's a very short line to could human performance be improved? And there's many examples of that in the military and non-military use, and Formula F1 drivers, competitive sports. I think that the sky is the limit And I think the lessons we're learning now about building brain resilience will translate across diseases and non-disease areas as well.
I'm always interested in your perspective on what are the technologies that we need to get us there.
Yeah, I think, one thing that it may not be considered a technology per se, but I think the idea of introducing a disruptive technology and collecting data from patient use real time in the home and integrating that in a platform is going to be incredibly valuable. In our case, we want to create a platform where the device is customized to the individual. So in our case, we confirm brain activity with our device at the start, and we optimize it. We optimize the settings for that. We monitor device adherence real time using the cloud. We provide adherence reports to the treating physician so they know how the person's using the device real time. We want to integrate that with a diagnostic step up front so we can treat people earlier. We also want to integrate it with a monitoring aspect where we monitor the person in their home and we get a sense of whether they're doing better, or not.
Yeah.
And I think that bringing all of those things together in a data-rich environment will require technology. It'll require different types of analytical techniques to integrate all that data. It will require a different commercial model, and it'll require a lot of activity at integrated delivery networks. So the pattern of care in the future will be integrating new technologies, not at the individual patient level only, but at the health system level. So we change care pathways, we monitor performance, and we provide real-time evidence of impact. I think that's the future.
Well, the future is bright. I'm very excited to see what you and your team are working on and to follow you in the months and years ahead. Thank you so much for not just your time here today, but all the work that you do to advance patient care. Really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right, once again, it was great to hear from Ralph Kern of Cognito. Now it's time for our keynote conversation. Again, my guest is Darrin Uecker. He's the Chief Technology Officer at Pulse Biosciences. We'll talk a lot of medtech. We'll talk about his start at Computer Motion, sort of what went into the decision to combine Computer Motion with Intuitive. And he's been with a lot of companies that I know you've heard of because I've heard of them. He's been Chief Technology Officer. He's been head of R&D. He's been CEO, so Darrin has seen a lot and shares a lot of, I think, tremendous insights on what makes medtech great. So let's have this conversation with Darrin Uecker, the Chief Technology Officer of Pulse Biosciences. Well, Darrin Uecker, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks a lot for having me.
It's my pleasure. You had some great news at the AF Symposium last week for Pulse Biosciences. I want to unpack, I think, which was some early, but I think really dramatic results, and see where you go next. But first, of course, we love to learn about our guests and about their path in medtech. And as I said before we pushed record, I was going through your path, and a lot of familiar names that I want to sort of visit upon. And a lot of successful outcomes to the companies you're with as well. So it seems like you're a bit of a lucky charm. But let's start at the beginning. You were with Computer Motion. Well, actually, my question is always, and let's be consistent. What brought you into the medtech industry?
Yeah, I feel very fortunate to have met some great people and along the way, and got into some really fun and exciting companies. I'm an engineer by background, and went to UC Santa Barbara. Met some people while I was in graduate school studying robotics. And through those kind of relationships, ended up at Computer Motion in the early days of that company. That's what kind of got me into med tech from the get-go, and I'm 30 plus years now. I'm sort of a lifer in the development of medical devices.
So did you self-identify as a robotics person first joining Computer Motion? Were you not a med tech person?
Yeah, honestly, there was a group of people that were at UCSB studying robotics, and that company was founded by some of those individuals. But it was really it was a robotics background looking for applications,
Hmm.
and then the application of surgical robotics was hit on. So it was really roboticists that had no real understanding of medical devices,
Yep.
uh, had never been into an operating room, and kind of had to take that technology and learn on the fly everything you need to learn when you develop medical devices. I mean, it's often the case. I think there aren't a lot of programs that sort of teach you the ins and outs of med tech and how to develop devices and, the regulatory environment and all those things. And so it really came from a technology base, and then met the application and brought in, physicians as KOLs that helped really connect the technology, to the medical field and to the operating room in this case. And that's a theme, right? That I
Hmm.
think at least is a through line for me. It's technologies that, you meet up with physicians and magic happens.
Absolutely. And of course, a Computer Motion, it was the system used in the first telesurgery procedure that we've talked about on the podcast before.
Yeah, that's
Really
correct.
broke some ground, and it ultimately was acquired by Intuitive. It looks like you were there for the entire time through the acquisition. Is your timeline matching up exactly to that?
Yeah, yeah. So I was, pretty early at Computer Motion, and all the way through, basically through the acquisition. So 10-ish years. I mean, it was that's a whole, book in itself. But it was a fascinating experience. I mean, it was two companies, I think that, had the same, goal at the end of the day, but took different approaches to sort of the design and the platforms that were being developed, and really were battling it out in the early days, trying to figure out, what was going to be the first killer app for robotics,
Hmm.
and really, paving, pioneering that area. And I think what happened was, there was we were competing fiercely kind of in the market. We were competing fiercely in the patent areas and in some other places. And I think, the two sort of management teams got together and said, look, we're going to beat each other up here
Yep.
and slow each other down, and maybe coming together and really focusing on making this market and building this great opportunity and bringing this technology to patients faster and more efficiently and effectively is really what we should do. And so that really is what drove that combination. And I was fortunate to be there. I was fortunate to kind of stay through the integration of it, and spent a little time, with Intuitive Surgical. At that time, I have great admiration for, the folks there and what they've done going forward. It was really, I mean, it's an amazing story.
Hmm.
And I think those early days were foundational in terms of really launching it. And I'm grateful to have played a part in it. So, yeah, it was a fantastic experience.
That's great. As you sort of describe the decision to join forces, the way you say it, the tone you use, it makes so much sense. But we don't see that happen very often in industry. There seems to be just a slugfest of sorts until there's a declared winner. Um, was it just an
Yeah.
unusual set of circumstances? What do you think? Why doesn't that happen more often, or what was so
Yeah.
special about that particular moment that it did happen?
Yeah. I mean, probably some of the way I described it is the benefit of, many years between now and then, and uh, and telling the story. But because, for sure, during a lot of that period of time, the competition was fierce between the companies.
Hmm.
Um, on the technology side, on the sales and marketing side, in patent litigation, which, is well documented publicly. And so it doesn't come about immediately, of course. I think each company thinks they're the ones that are going to win the
Yep.
day. And so, coming to that decision, I think, took a lot of discussion and a lot of, people thinking about what's in the best interest of the future of this technology and belief in this technology in the industry. The CEO of Computer Motion at that time was Bob Duggan, who's, the co-chairman of the board and has been involved in Pulse for a long time. I've known him for, 30 some odd years now. And it was just a lot of discussion about thinking through the different paths and, kind of at the end of the day, if your goal is really to see this technology impact as many patients as you can, while being able to build a big successful business, are you, better off doing it, independently as you've been doing, or, does joining forces make more sense? And so it didn't happen immediately. It wasn't a quick decision by either company. We had to beat each other up a little bit before maybe figuring out that, again, if we keep beating each other up, someone else could enter this market without all the, the battle scars and compete against us. And so why not, join forces and really build an impenetrable, moat around this technology with the technology itself, the IP and everything else. And so, I don't know, I think people have different probably ideas about that and how it happened. That's my view. And I was, I was in favor of it at the time. I mean, I could see, how much time and energy we were spending competing. And I could also see how it could just get a lot more efficient and effective if there was one company that was really, going after it and applying all their energy to, building these systems and everything required, to have great outcomes for patients and physicians and everything else. So, when I look back, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, sure.
It was, like I said, it was a pleasure to be involved.
That's great, and it clearly worked. So you were standing at a moment in time when you could, I imagine, continue to focus on robotics or surgical robotics and stay within that world, or go pure medtech. And you went pure medtech. You were CTO at Computer Motion. You took the job as CTO at Rita Medical Systems, which was one of those companies I referenced earlier. That I remember Rita Medical.
Yeah.
What was that? Were you a medtech person at that point? Was there any tough decision, crossroads, anything, or did you see a medtech company as your clear next step?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was definitely a difficult decision. I had been in robotics, surgical robotics. I really believed in the promise of it and the future of it. And, I think as I kind of stepped back and thought about, okay, what to do next? Do I stay a part of Intuitive Surgical and see that through, or do I maybe try, something different? And I got an opportunity at Rita Medical Systems. Joe DeVivo, who had been also at Computer Motion, took over Rita Medical Systems as the CEO. And he recruited me to come to Rita Medical Systems. And, I was just really intrigued by Rita. It was my kind of first step into energy-based systems. It was an RF ablation company, one of the early, volumetric RF ablation companies that was treating malignant disease. So, that company was involved in treating cancer in liver, in kidney, bone metastases, a little bit in lung. And, I would say I was drawn to the idea of, devices as sort of therapeutics and treating cancer and treating, diseases that we know to be big problems. Not that robotics wasn't doing that, but But I think, having spent a good amount of time in robotics, maybe I was also sort of interested in something a little bit different. And robotics was a little bit different at the time. It probably still is a little bit different in that at the end of the day, it's really a tool, and a tool that enhances significantly, surgeons' capabilities. And getting into energy-based systems, it really is more, I viewed it then, I view it now as a little bit more of a therapy type of device. And so
Mhm.
I was intrigued by that. I, obviously didn't know a lot about radio frequency ablation. So I took the leap. I did my diligence, felt, really excited about it. And it was, it was a great experience. I learned a ton. I think we did a lot of great stuff. And as you probably know, it was ultimately acquired by Angiodynamics. Um, but it was, which was great. I think, again, it was the right transaction for that company and that technology. Angiodynamics was kind of building what we might call a oncology device platform, which
Mhm.
nobody really talked about that kind of thing back then, but now it's a little bit more common. We have interventional oncologists, and so devices have made their way into oncology, and that was kind of an early step into that. But it was, that was sort of my thinking, and it was, again, it was a very interesting experience.
That's great. And you held senior technical positions at Conceptus, and
Yep.
CyberHeart, and
Yep.
I want to get into your next move in a moment. But CyberHeart, a Tom Fogarty company. Any Tom Fogarty stories? I know you joined a couple of years after it was started, but what was it like to be
Yeah,
part
I
of
don't I
CyberHeart?
don't I don't have any, I don't have any great stories. I've just, like most people that, were able to meet Dr. Fogarty and spend some time with him, I'm just super grateful that I had that opportunity. And, we all know he passed recently, and,
Yep.
I just, look back on that time, and he was on the board at Pulse. You may not know that, for a period of time.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, and so I just, yeah, my only story is to say that, I feel very, grateful to have had the opportunity to meet him and to get to work with him. He was um, in many ways, and just, being able to talk to him about the things you're working on, and other things was a pleasure. And, again, I just felt really grateful for that.
That's great. So, and then in June 2009, you became president and CEO of Gynesonics, again, another company I've heard of, another company that would go on to be acquired. Was being a CEO something you had set out to do early on, or something that you had set a goal for yourself at some point, or it doesn't ever just come together, but how did you find your way into that role?
Yeah. Yeah, I worked mostly at smaller med tech companies, and kind of worked my way up into managing more of the organizations from, early on. It was R&D, and then it was R&D and operations, and then R&D operations and ClinReg quality. And I think I was approached initially by a board member at Gynesonics, to come on to the board at Gynesonics because I had an RF ablation background. Gynesonics, was a company that was developing a very unique device that combined ultrasound imaging with RF ablation for the treatment of uterine fibroids in women's health. And so a board member approached me to come on the board, and which I was excited to do. And then pretty quickly after that, the board asked me to come on full time with the company as the president and CEO. And while I hadn't, to your earlier question, I hadn't really kind of sought that out.
Hmm.
But I think, in a small company, the role of the president and CEO is obviously much different than in a much larger company. And so I felt like this was an opportunity to use my skills on the product development and technology side, by, running the company, but then, build some additional skills around, fundraising and marketing the company and business development activities and things like that. So that's sort of how it came along. And, I was thrilled at the opportunity. I thought the application was very exciting and, much needed. And the technology, was really a good fit, for what it was trying to solve.
Hmm. So you worked as I mentioned a few times at a few startups as CTO and as a CEO, and you've had a lot of success, or the companies have gone on to be acquired. And I joked that you were a lucky charm. You obviously had a greater role in that, but were you able to identify common traits in these success stories, because they are medtech success stories? What does it take to get a string of wins like that, to lead a company, to be part of a company, to be part of the leadership of a company that would then go on to be part of a larger OEM and a bigger part of
Yeah.
healthcare?
I think that, small companies are all about, staying focused on, the product that you're developing, the data that you need to demonstrate its utility, generate positive outcomes, and in a market that, people are clearly interested in
Hmm.
and is sizable, and focus on that stuff. I'm not a big fan of a strategy which is, managing to exit. I think that can be very challenging. It's commonly done, and I think some people do it very successfully, and so I would. I think if that's the way people want to go, that works for some people. I think for
Hmm.
me, just focusing on, the product and making a great product with good outcomes, and continuing to drive as if you can, keep taking it forward is the best strategy. And then, you're always in communication with potential acquirers if you're a small med tech company, and they want to stay, kind of in the know with what you're doing. And, then these things just, can kind of happen. I mean, in my case, they were all very different reasons. And, just for clarity, I think at Gynesonics, I wasn't there through the Hologic acquisition that happened,
Fair. Yeah.
somewhat recently, and I
Yeah.
was, already gone. And that company, it took a long time, but I think the common thread is, you're just driving the product development, you're generating great outcomes, you're, demonstrating that, physicians can use your device, that it's easy to learn, easy to use, in a market that, people understand is going to be a good business. And, then the acquisitions, if that's the exit, they come. And, so anyway, I think that's the strategy I've tried to hold to. And we've done that at Pulse as well. I
Mm.
think it's a common thread.
Well, that's great. Well, let's get into the Pulse story. I think that's
Yeah.
a good simple strategy, though. Good products drive good outcomes. You joined as president and CEO in 2015. Talk to us a bit about Pulse and its mission. What problem is it trying to solve?
So I was recruited, to come to Pulse. It was a very unique story. The company had been, kind of pulled together by, an investment group, or a small kind of, investment banking firm called MDB Capital. They had identified the technology, did some research into the technology and its IP, identified, a couple of universities and a couple small companies that had IP in, what we call now nanosecond pulse field ablation,
Oh, interesting.
and realized that this could be a really, unique platform technology that could potentially be used in a lot of applications. And so they, secured all of that intellectual property, under one company, which is now Pulse Biosciences, and in exchange for equity. and then went about hiring a CEO, which was me, to really, take this technology, which was, kind of on the bench, if you will, had come out of universities. And so the mission was, let's, take this, really unique non-thermal technology that has a really unique mechanism of action in terms of its ablation, and, build a platform and explore what are the best applications to go after. And,
Mm-hmm.
I had been in ablation throughout my years at, like we just talked about, at different places. And so as I understood the technology, I just believed that, wow, this is a new energy modality. It's going to have a lot of applications throughout the body. And so, if we build a kind of a general purpose platform with this technology, and then begin to explore the different applications, I think we're going to hit on a number of them. So, unlike a lot of medtech companies that start with a sort of singular application, very focused, single indication, and maybe even as we discussed previously, maybe even with an eye towards strategics that would be interested in acquiring it and putting it in their channel. This was much more of a platform kind of opportunity, or potential platform opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the field was kind of open in terms of where should we go and what should we do. So that was really the attraction for me. And our vision and mission was really to take this, nanosecond PFA technology and move it into as many applications as we could, for the benefit of patients, and physicians, and the healthcare system as a whole.
But the focus was on the heart, or was there opportunities everywhere?
Yeah, so there were really opportunities everywhere, and we've explored a number of them. Even through preclinical work and clinical work. We explored dermatology for a period of time.
Hmm.
We started in on the cardiac ablation side, relatively early, probably a couple years, once we were kind of had our pulse generator platform, which we now call Npulse. Once we had that, we then worked with some researchers externally and began our own internal programs to look at cardiac ablation, both on the surgical side, and then ultimately, on the electrophysiology side. So it was sort of always one of the top applications.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we have, I just mentioned two in the cardiac space, which we currently have ongoing. And then we have another one that's currently in early commercialization, which is a percutaneous ablation device using our nanosecond PFA technology for the treatment of benign thyroid nodules. So it's a very different than treating the heart, but it's a equally compelling application for this technology.
That's interesting. I mean, the story isn't identical, but as you're talking about it, it kind of sounded like your computer motion experience too, where you were looking for an application for robotics, and this was clearly more focused than that. But how unusual is this approach? This is, and I don't mean this in any sort of diminutive way, but this is you had a really great hammer, and you were kind of looking for the right nail. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you're spot on, and I often, talk to people about the parallels between, robotics and this technology. It's very, very similar. And obviously I lived through the robotics days. I learned a lot in that process, which I think I've, brought to Pulse Biosciences in terms of, how do you bring about a platform, and then get into, different applications. And one way you start with that is to build the platform so that it has a lot of capability. And so from the very beginning, we built a console, which I mentioned, called Npulse, that, is if you look at our website, you can see it. It's a very polished, it's, a commercial grade system now. But it has all kinds of capability, knobs you can turn, and it's all software driven. It has wireless uploading to proprietary cloud infrastructure that we have. So we really started from the beginning and built something that we knew had the capability to allow us to go after a lot of different applications. So that's sort of point one, right? When you're
Hmm.
getting into, hey, I think this can be a platform technology. So, how do we prioritize our activities from the get-go? The second thing I would say in that, which, I touched on, but I also mentioned, or I also learned from my robotics days, is you have to really be diligent in the development of your intellectual property along the way. Because often, and I think this was true in robotics also, the early IP is all about the core technology and what it is and those types of things. But as you develop these systems and you actually, have to move them into the clinic or an operating room, you learn a lot of things along the way that have never been solved because nobody's brought that technology into the operating room before. And, we have unique requirements in the operating room around safety and things like that. And so it's very important in those early days to really make sure you're focused on those things and the IP that you can gain, patents specifically around those different developments, that you're doing. So, I would say the first, third of our history, maybe even the first half, was really focused, kind of on those things in particular. And the last thing I would say quickly about being able to do those things as a platform company is you need board members that have that vision and
Hmm.
aren't focused on narrow indications so that you can exit as quickly as possible. And with the good fortune of having Bob Duggan involved with the company, from the relatively early days, and he is, by all definitions, a visionary, someone who's really wants to, change medicine and change the way things are done in a positive way, and is willing to invest in those things. So, those are the important elements when you're starting out, especially with a platform. I think, robotics was very similar, and we're kind of doing those same things here.
And how did you do all of this as a public company? You went public in 2016. I mean, this is
Yeah.
just a contrarian approach to medtech
Yeah.
development, I have to say.
So the folks that kind of founded and launched the company, or brought all the IP together
Yeah,
to bring the company together, their model was to go early in terms of the company being public, and it was a little bit of a biotech like strategy.
yeah.
Um, and they were successful in terms of taking us public, and we raised money that allowed us to really get going. Um, and then, subsequently Bob Duggan got involved, and he's really put in a lot of his own money into the company. And that's been key to us being able to do what I said. I think
Yeah.
that you have to have backing that can see, the vision, and can invest for the long term. And, as a public company, of course, it can be challenging, but, as a public company, then you're obligated to be reporting on a quarterly basis. And there's a discipline to that I think is also valuable for companies, even small companies. So, it was the path that we were put on, and that we accepted, and we've made, I think, the best of it. And I think it's we find ourselves in a good spot right now as a result of it.
That's great. Well, I want to unpack a little more about the field, the pulse field ablation field. But let's just hit upon quickly the news that you had last week, released at AF Symposium. I know it was a smaller trial, but I think you had like a 96% success rate with your treatments. Can you talk a bit about your recent news and where you are in the clinical development of your PFA system?
Sure. Yeah, so it was very exciting for us. So our electrophysiology program today consists of a very unique catheter that works with our Impulse nanosecond PFA system. It's a very uniquely designed catheter, designed specifically for our nanosecond pulse field technology. What's unique about it is it's a what we would call a circumferential. It creates a circumferential ablation, so a complete 360-degree around ablation. So if you take our catheter, you can place it inside the pulmonary vein, and in a single 5-second ablation cycle, you completely ablate around the entire circumference of the pulmonary vein. You can also use it on the posterior wall, and so for the electrophysiologists. It's a very simple catheter to use. It requires very few applications to perform pulmonary vein isolation, which is the dominant procedure for treating paroxysmal atrial fibrillation patients. Last week at the AF Symposium, what we presented was over the last couple of years, we've been running a feasibility study in Europe at 3 different centers. This is our kind of first in human study, and we've been in Prague predominantly at Homolka Hospital with Dr. Vivek Reddy, and he presented the data from the podium at the meeting. And it was a total of 150 patients were presented. It's feasibility data, so during this study we used 2 different doses. We started with a dose that has been very effective, and then we used a lower dose to test that dose as part of the feasibility. Ultimately going with the dose that we started with. So where we started, we ended, and we've also used quite a lot of different mapping and navigation systems through the course of this feasibility study. So we really spent a lot of time doing this study to look at different technologies to combine with our catheter, having different operators with their hands on the catheter, making sure the dose is right. And we presented all that data, or I should say Dr. Reddy presented all that data at the AF Symposium. We're very excited about the data while it's feasibility, and we need to reproduce this data, and we intend to reproduce this data in an IDE study coming up very soon. As you mentioned, using Holter monitors for procedural success, we had a 96% success rate at 1 year in 47 patients, and 100% success at 6 months with 75 patients, again with Holter monitoring as the endpoint. So we're thrilled about it. The safety profile is excellent. And so, we've been really, gearing up and working hard on this study as a means to get to our IDE pivotal study. And again, as I mentioned, that study has now been approved by the FDA. It was approved in last December of 2025. And we expect to begin enrollment on that study here very soon.
That's great. And just to update folks, you're now Chief Technology Officer. I know Paul Laviolette of SV Life Sciences, or formerly of SV Life Sciences, is CEO. Let's look broadly about broadly at the industry and kind of wrap up with this. As you were talking, I kind of was thinking back again to computer motion, except with the decision, however it came to be, to merge with Intuitive, the understanding that we're gonna, instead of slugging it out with each other, let's combine forces. We're looking at a PFA market now with every major strategic, I think, has a program. We're seeing a number of startups in the area that have their own systems, or in some form, in some stage of clinical testing. We've got the founder of Varipulse, who's now working at Field Medical, with a move to the ventricular part of the heart. So how does this seems like an area where people are going to choose to slug it out? How do you see this sort of moving forward? How does Pulse Biosciences fit into this broader field?
Yeah, so we I think the way we view this is, we really view ourselves as kind of a second generation PFA technology. Nanosecond is very different from everything I think that's out there today, which is generally in the microsecond domain. We think there are significant advantages to nanosecond, including, depth of ablation, homogeneity of the ablation, ability to create large ablations quickly. So we think there are, significant advantages. One thing we have been public about is that we also understand that in order to create a great solution for the electrophysiologist and get great outcomes, it requires the integration of, different products, different technologies. And so on the ablation side, integrating tightly with a mapping and navigation system, such as the Insight X system from Abbott or the Cardo system from J&J, is can provide the kind of solution that electrophysiologists expect and will help drive great outcomes. And so, we've been public in saying that we believe that this business, this electrophysiology business of ours, is one where a partnership makes the most sense. Not just because it can provide, the best possible solution, we think, but also because, there are some very large companies in this space that have very large footprints and large installed base. And I think strategically, we think that just makes the most sense. So, we don't know right now as I'm talking to you, what that looks like for us. But, at the AF Symposium, we did a live case broadcast. We showed our catheter with a novel integration from Abbott with the Insight system. It was very well received. I think it was fantastic. At the HRS meeting last year, we had an integration with the Cardo system. And so, we think there's a lot of opportunity out there to partner. Our goal is to partner because we think that provides the best solution. And so, I think that's what I would say about, where we're at. And you pointed to, previous and in the robotics conversation, it's similar. I think we recognize what we're really good at, what our technology is really good at, but where it makes sense to partner to leverage what other people are good at and, and drive a really great solution.
Well, that seems like a great sort of sensible possible outcome to how things may shape up in electrophysiology. What about your other two programs? How do you see those playing out in being part of Pulse Biosciences futures?
So we have a cardiac clamp. So we have a cardiac surgery program where the clamp uses our nanosecond PFA technology. It's very exciting. This is in an IDE study today. And, I think where that heads remains to be seen. We're fully prepared to take it through the IDE study and to PMA approval, and then, continue to move forward. And we'll see. I think it depends, but, certainly there are companies that have large cardiac surgery device businesses where they have, reps and others standing in cases where these types of ablations are done. So I think there are opportunities for partnership. There are also opportunities to continue to move it forward, as part of Pulse Biosciences. And on the thyroid side, I think, we've made the decision to commercialize. We're currently in the very early stages of that. But, we think with, a relatively small footprint, we can really, drive this commercially and, and just continue to build this market. It's an untapped market. It's one we're very excited about. And I think makes sense, to have our own folks in there and moving this forward for the time being. And so, yeah, I think they're all kind of different in their own way.
That's fantastic. Well, Darrin, I appreciate the walk down memory lane. You've been again a lot of medtech success stories, and it sounds like you're working on another one. So appreciate your sharing your insights and experiences.
Yeah, Tom, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. And that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, that is a wrap. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Device Talks Weekly podcast. Please do subscribe to the Device Talks Podcast Network or the Device Talks Weekly podcast directly. But if you do the podcast network, you'll get access to all of our podcasts, including upcoming episodes of Women in MedTech, hosted by Kayleen Brown, and Abbott Talks, hosted by both Kayleen Brown and myself. So lots of great MedTech podcasts coming your way. I hope you will, of course, join us at Device Talks Boston. That's happening May 27th and 28th at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. Go to DeviceTalks.com to find more information, or you can go to directly to boston.devicetalks.com. You can also meet up with us at Device Talks Minnesota. As we mentioned, that's happening on May 4th. Go to minnesota.devicetalks.com to register to join us there. It's a great event last year. We're happy to relaunch it and can't wait to be back on Star Wars Day, May 4th. Other than that, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please connect with Kayleen Brown. Please connect with Chris Newmarker. And of course, make sure you follow Device Talks and Mass Device on LinkedIn. That's it, folks. Thanks again for being part of Device Talks, and of course for joining us on this episode of the Device Talks Weekly podcast.